Hello, welcome to Bress Cartoons History. My name is Bress Spence, and today we'll be talking about the Jacobite Rebellions of 1708 to 1745. Alright, let's begin. In France, James Francis Edward Stuart, or the Old Pretender, was planning to get his throne back with French support. The French, who were at war with Britain in the War of Spanish Succession, and they wanted the British to waste resources on the rebellion. In February 1708, a French fleet and an army of 6,000 strong assembled at Dunkirk for an expedition to Scotland. In March, the fleet set sail, but due to contrary winds and a British fleet of fourth, the fleet returned home with the army failing to land in Scotland. On August 1st, 1714, Queen Anne died and her second cousin, George, Elector of Hanover, became King George I of Great Britain and Ireland. His coronation caused a riot due to him being German and not being able to speak or understand English. People saw him as a foreigner, and people believed that James Francis Stuart had a stronger claim to the throne. So, on the 17th of August, 1715, John Erskine, the Earl of Mar, raised the Jacobite standard at Weymar, Aberdeenshire, claimed by 600 supporters, and using anti-Hanoverian sentiment to gather support. There was an attempted uprising in Cornwall, but it was crushed before it started. The Earl of Mar's army was able to capture Inverness and Perth, but were unable to capture Fort William. By October, Mar's forces neared 20,000 strong and had taken control of all of Scotland above the Firth of Forth, apart from Stirling Castle. On the 13th of November, Earl of Mar's army faced the government army at Sheriffmuir, where the government won a strategic victory, and the battle only demoralized the Jacobite army, which had a larger numbers than the government army they faced. Soon, the Jacobite Rebellion was crushed in April 1716. On the 13th of April 1719, the Jacobites, with Spanish support, the Spanish were at war with Britain in the War of the Quadruple Alliance, landed at Loch Ash with 300 Spanish Marines, and the Jacobites raised 1,500 troops. But on the 11th of May, the Royal Navy captured the Jacobite HQ at Eilean Castle, capturing 43 troops, 343 barrels of powder, and on 10th of June, the government forces faced the Jacobites at Glen Shiel and defeating the Jacobites, pretty much ending the rebellion. On July 25th, 1745, Charles Edward Stuart, also known as the Young Pretender or Bonnie Prince Charlie, landed at Glenfinnan and managed to raise 1,000 clansmen. After some success against government forces by September 17th, when he captured Edinburgh, except for the castle, he had 2,400 men under his banner. At Edinburgh, he proclaimed his father, James Francis, as King James III and himself as regent. After defeating the government forces at Prestonpan on the 21st of September, he had 5,500 men under his command and marched to Manchester via Preston in hopes to find more support. There were only 200 men that had joined him. The prince's army marched as far as Derby, where the prince wanted to continue the march to London, but his advisors wanted to return to Scotland because of no French reinforcements landing in England, as well as lack of support in England. Government armies were closing in, and the government forces were capturing Jacobite territory in Scotland, so they returned with the prince in low spirits and the army morale and discipline deteriorating. After returning to Scotland and got his reinforcements on the 1st of July 1746, his 9,000 strong army marched to Stirling Castle. After defeating the government army at Falkirk, they laid siege to Stirling Castle, but on the 1st of February they lifted the siege after making little progress, and Prince Charles heard that the Duke of Cumberland's army was coming to lift the siege. After being chased by the Duke of Cumberland's army, on the 15th of April, the Jacobite army decided to face the government army at Culloden. But it was the Duke of Cumberland's birthday, and he issued 2 gallons of brandy to each regiment. Hearing this, Prince Charles ordered a night attack on the government army, but the night attack failed due to the confusion and disorder of the night march, so the Jacobite army returned to Culloden, exhausted from the all-night march. The battle began with an artillery exchange which lasted either 2 to 3 minutes or 30 minutes. Shortly after 1 p.m., Charles ordered the left to advance and facing heavy artillery fire and advancing on boggy ground. On the Jacobite right started to charge towards the government lines, with the centre joining them. They were particularly hit hard by government volley fire at near point-blank range, but the Jacobites reached the government lines and a fierce melee broke out. The Jacobites pushed deep into the government lines, but the government regiments formed a horseshoe formation which trapped them on 3 sides. Meanwhile, on the Jacobite left, the advance had stalled out due to heavy fire, and smaller units fell back due to the heavy fire, so Cumberland ordered the Cobham's 10th Dragoons to ride them down. The boggy ground impaired the cavalry, so they turned to engage the Irish pickets, who were sent to stabilize the deteriorating Jacobite left flank, but the cavalry broke through and the Jacobite left collapsed. With the Jacobites in full rout, the Royal Écossais and the Kilmarnock's foot guard, who remained in reserve throughout the battle, formed a rearguard, but they gave Prince Charles and the other senior officers time to escape before they retreated or surrendered, ending the last battle of the British Isles. The battle pretty much ended the Jacobite Rebellion, with Prince Charles and some senior officers fleeing to France, while others were executed, and the Duke of Cumberland made sure that the Highlands would never rebel again. In 1750, the Highland cleansings began, with Scottish and a few English landlords forcing their tenants out of their homes so they can use the land for farming. Many went to America and later Australia and New Zealand. Surprisingly, Jacobitism is still around today, in the form of the Royal Stuart Society. If you like this video, like and subscribe. See you next time.